Hello and welcome to the Amherst Conservation Commission meeting of July 9th, 2025. The time is 7:03. We have members present tonight, Bruce, Rachel, Alex, and absent is Andre. Staff present are Aaron Jock and Dave Zomick. I'm just gonna check for Andre in the, nope, okay. All right, so chair's report. So you guys have probably noticed a couple changes in an effort to sort of introduce some new efficiencies to our meetings and preparation so that we can handle these 7 hearing meetings in a timely manner. So one will be Aaron's more regular reports to us so we can kind of see staff comments and questions ahead of time. And hopefully that will help in preparation and also just get the applicants on the same page with things prior to the meeting. What else? Oh, we're gonna change the hearing structure a bit. So we're gonna try, and I saw, Aaron, that you put this in the tonight's PowerPoint. So we're gonna have applicants presenting first, and then Aaron will go. So applicants will be able to introduce their projects first. Then what else? Lastly, we're going to be pushing out our review of bylaws and your comment period time on the bylaws until the fall, just because we need to accommodate some summer staff time availability and just to help everyone have enough time and to make sure that we have public participation in this and not everyone's not on vacation. So everybody has a reprieve on the comment period. And anyway, hope you can get to it soon. And then lastly, just a reminder of our special meeting on July 30th for the hunting regulations. Oh, Jason. Uh, Bruce, it looks like you're taking notes. So Jason's arrived at 4:06.
Okay.
Um, Right, so I think our folder, Aaron will be moving the material from week to week, so you would still find the material for that online in the public folders, in the hunting regulations. So there's no special folder for it yet. So just make sure you get to visit that at some point so we can all come prepared for that special meeting. And if anybody has any particular comments or significant things they think will take more time than just a 5-minute period, please let Aaron know probably so we can budget the time for that meeting appropriately. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dave for the director's report. Oh,
Jane,
Alex. Yep.
on that July 30th meeting, has a time been set?
I believe it's 7 to 9. It's just we're gonna try and do it under 2 hours if possible, but yeah, it's just gonna be typical
Thank you.
timing for us. All right, Dave, please go ahead.
Sure, thanks. Michelle, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, a couple of quick updates for the commission, but I guess I just wanted to start by, complimenting Aaron and the commission. I'm well aware of kind of the ebbs and flows of work all over town with the various boards and committees, and I have to say the commission is perhaps the busiest working group we have out there right now. There's just a lot flowing through you, 7 hearings tonight. And as I talked to Aaron about upcoming meetings, it's a busy summer. And that's one of the reasons I, kind of reached out to Michelle and said, perhaps we could push off the bylaw and reg review until the fall, because there's no end in sight. It's just Aaron is constantly getting new applications. We know that we have all indications that Shutesbury Road will be coming back before you and other boards and committees in town. So, just wanted to give a shout out to Aaron and to all of you for the hard work you're doing, because you are busy. And I monitor the planning board, the ZPA, the historical commission, et cetera, et cetera. So you're doing a lot of work during these summer months. So thank you. Very quickly, jumping around town a little bit. More good news up at Buffers Pond. We test every Monday or Tuesday of every week during the summer, and lo and behold, our water quality is holding at Buffers Pond. So that's a wonderful thing. We got through the 4th of July holiday and tested this week, and we are below the state mandated standards. So that's a good thing. I can't fully explain it given how difficult last summer was, but there you have it. We have had a couple of very productive conversations. Aaron, myself, our sustainability coordinator, and our health director, public health director, Kiko Mallon. And we are, I think I reported that we've got some very positive response from the university and also from Amherst College. So we'll have more on that once we have a little bit more kind of meat on the bone there with regard to kind of a path forward. But I'm really excited to get kind of the academic perspective with some expertise coming from the university and Amherst College. So as I reported last time, I'm just really excited to have focus on the Fort River and South Amherst and beyond that watershed, and the Mill River and Cushman Brook watershed up in North Amherst. It's really exciting to have some focus on both those watersheds. So that's really exciting. I also just want to report Aaron is going to be working with the Kestrel Trust, looking at a small infestation of the water chestnut up at Plumbrook Pond. I think you may recall last summer we found some plants there. Not a huge infestation, if you will, but there are some water chestnut plants there. So we'll be working with Kestrel. Last year, I think we found under 20 plants there. But we want to get those out now. This is a good time in the summer to do that. At Michelle's prompting, and it was a good reminder to me, we also have a small patch, relatively small patch of black swallowwort at Wentworth Farm. So Brad's going to be working, Brad Borderweek's going to be working with our communications manager to kind of plan a volunteer pull of that black swallowwort before it sets seeds later this summer. So look for that on social media. It'll probably be a 2.5 hour event. And if any of you would like to join us, it's kind of a fun little event for families and individuals to come. Be prepared. It is in the middle of the field at Wentworth Farm, so ticks are always a concern, but you'll see that coming out in the next 2 weeks. What else is going on? We're beginning to think about CPA projects for next year. I welcome any thoughts you might have. You could email them to me. If you have ideas for conservation trail projects, et cetera, or other projects in other categories, please. I am kind of often the staff central conduit for projects in historic preservation, affordable housing, conservation, open space, and recreation. So those proposals are due during the month of September. I hope Jason will still be on that committee as our representative from the conservation side of things. So CPA projects, please, if you have any ideas, we'll certainly have plenty of ideas and concepts coming from town staff in DPW and recreation and planning and conservation. Those are kind of the main things. Again, I mentioned last time we are gearing up for repairing the loop trail at Hickory Ridge this summer, and then finalizing all the elements of that trail. By elements, I mean kiosks, benches, bike loops, all the things that we put forth in our NOI, as well as the application to the planning board. And again, we're hoping to kind of work with various boards and committees, including the commission and planning board, to have some sort of a ribbon cutting for that trail in the fall, now that the clubhouse is gone and down. So that's kind of what's going on around town. A lot of trail clearing going on. Brad and his very limited staff this year have their hands full, just brushing back trails, keeping them. Their main kind of mantra is think about 2 people walking side by side on these trails, and are they getting hit by poison ivy, multiflora rose, and other vines and natives and invasives? And can we keep most of our trails open with a focus on the Robert Frost Trail as well as the Ken Cuddeback Trail as those 2 kind of central trail systems we have, and then as time permits, working off of those. So it's a big job, 125, 30 miles of trails. It's a lot of work, and we don't have many staff this summer. So that's kind of where we're at. Happy to take any questions. Please email me if you have any ideas for CPA projects.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Jason, for serving on CPA again. Bruce, I think you are first.
3 questions. Can you send us, either Dave or Jason, send us a list of the criteria that a project would have to meet in order to have a decent chance of getting CPA funding? 2, I believe it's also true that there was good water quality at Groff Park in the river itself, if that's accurate. And 3, I'm going to forget 3. Oh, the Fort River Forward Planning Project ended at the end of June. You may hear more about it from the various people who worked on it, particularly Michelle, Aaron, Dave, and others. We'll bring some of these ideas forward as they are appropriate for the commission. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Bruce. Alex? You're muted, Alex.
I can help you shop for everyday items.
Okay, question for Dave and a follow-up with the chair. Dave, we have from time to time gotten compensatory mitigation, and that's kept in a special account, I believe. And at some time in the future, as part of your report, would you give us a rundown on that account and how the money is might be spent and how the commission can be involved in those decisions? And then second, back to the chair, you left off, I think, mention of the drought level, which is on the PowerPoint.
Yeah,
And also, if you want me to say, so the next item past the director's report is the Land Management Subcommittee update. And if you want me to say a couple of words about the hunting document, I'm happy to do that for people who might not be familiar with it.
okay, yes, sorry, there's multiple agendas in my hand. So, drought level is normal as of May 1st. Is that the date? Okay, so currently level 0, which is great. Were you here when I announced the hunting? Yes, you were. Okay.
Yeah, you announced the date and asked people to be prepared.
Yeah, is there new information to share about the documents?
I thought I'd just give a thumbnail sketch of what the document is all about, and the fact that it's up on the web. I think you did mention that, but for those who may not have looked at it, it presents several alternatives on what to do about hunting on conservation land. Hunting has been allowed on 8 of the conservation areas, of which there are many. And so there are, what the subcommittee did is it came up with some alternatives that are discussed in the document, which is pretty meaty. It's not something you're going to pick up in 20 minutes and digest. So in preparation for the discussion on July 30th, I would appreciate it if you want to participate in a meaningful way. It's planned to spend, I'd say, at least an hour on it. It's 17 to 19 pages, including graphs and pictures. It's not all text, and it's I think it reads fairly well, but it's meaty and there's a lot to digest in order to be able to discuss in a meaningful way the various alternatives that are proposed on whether or not to allow hunting on conservation land. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Jason?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Dave about poison ivy removal. We went up to Mount Pollux and there is a ton of poison just growing along, there's like, I'm going to say like maybe a 2-foot wide pathway to get up to the top of Mount Pollux where there's not poison ivy growing. I don't know if that's changed, but as I understand it, even if you cut it now, it's still there. Is there any plans for alternatives for the removal of poison ivy there? And also at Wentworth Farm, I know it's pretty bad.
Yeah, great question, Jason. I may not have a terrific answer for it. It is a challenge for us all over town on trails everywhere. I just had a meeting with Brad today, and we were talking about organic approaches. We have tried in different parts of town to use the whole vinegar, salt, and dishwashing detergent, option. We've never sprayed for poison ivy in my time. We've never used glyphosate or anything like that. I'm open if commission members have suggestions, we're open. The challenge is just the sheer square footage of the problem. And you're right, you can mow it and sure that sets it back. And it's going to be there in the thatch. It's going to be there in the grass. And people who are sensitive to it can still get it by, brushing by it or sitting in it, having a picnic. I think the summit is fairly good at Mount Pollux, but definitely on the way up from the parking lot. We have had, some challenges, and frankly, sometimes mowing it, I think, really encourages it to spread. And the wider that path gets, the more sunlight it gets, and I think it actually, kind of proliferates up there. So I'm open to your suggestions, but we haven't had a lot of luck other than trying to burn it, if you will, by drying it out with the not burn it. I'm saying burn it using a solution of vinegar and salt.
How about goats?
We've talked about goats for a long time. There was a company in Amherst, Goat Girls, some years ago, and we talked to them pretty extensively. To be honest, it came down to a cost. It's not cheap to get goats in to do this. So again, I'm open if people have solutions that we haven't tried. I did want to just address, we're happy to send you links. I mean, the best information, Bruce, to the CPA, I would just direct you to the CPA has a very extensive webpage on our main page. And I think it has all the information on criteria as well as previous grants. So it's really good. It's very well done and easy to navigate. And yes, Alex, we can, Michelle and I had talked about, and thank you for the reminder about the mitigation funds. I can work with Aaron on those totals and kind of maybe have a small report at one of your upcoming meetings on what we've used those funds for in the past and what the commission would like to see them used for in the future.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing for poison ivy is if you're not going to do herbicide smothering, but that's a lot of black plastic length. So yeah, look, long pants, technique. Okay, we have a few minutes before our first hearing. And I think there's in terms of other business, we have one request for a certificate of compliance. And then there was the monitoring reports, which is pretty extensive. So is there any questions about the monitoring reports before we try and approach the certificate of compliance? Okay. Aaron, I understand the certificate of compliance is sort of tied to one of our hearings. Is this order of approach okay, or do we need to attend to it after we've had the NOI hearing?
Yeah, so we have the certificate of compliance request for the same parcel as the second hearing, and the project was originally permitted as part of a 3-lot subdivision. The only work that was done on that lot was tree clearing. And so I have not had an opportunity to pull the original order of conditions because it's in hard copy at the archives. If the commission wants for me to wait and pull that to have a look at the notice of intent and order of conditions before acting on it, that's a potential option. Both Alex and Bruce were on the site visit, so if they're or others are comfortable moving forward with the certificate, basically just certifying that the tree removal was the only aspect of the order that was completed, that's also an option.
And it would be a partial certificate of compliance that just covers that part of the activity.
Right, we'd be acknowledging that only a portion of the work had been completed and that the remainder of the work never began.
Okay, any thoughts on this, commissioners? I mean, I think Aaron has to go somewhere to get the archive. But it was part of a subdivision, and it's Bruce and Alex are there, so I'll let you guys talk. Looks like Bruce's hand was up first.
No,
No,
wasn't.
Alex. Okay, Alex, go ahead.
I would save Aaron the work.
Okay, noted. Bruce?
second.
All right, that was my inclination, given the nature of the work, the nature of the site, and if the people on site also think that, you know, I'm in favor of issuing it tonight. Rachel, Jason, any thoughts on it? Rachel?
Do we have to clear that permit out to be able to review the other permit, or can we have them open at the same time?
Aaron?
Before the second one is recorded, the certificate should hopefully be cleared.
Okay.
Bruce?
No, sorry, I was agreeing with Alex.
Okay, well, if someone wants to make a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance for Belchertown Road, Lot 3, Map 21B, Lot 72.
So moved.
A second.
Bruce on the motion, Rachel on the second. Alex, you're muted. Bruce,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Alex, was that an aye?
Yep.
Jason?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay. Gosh, it's almost painful to have to wait this 5 minutes knowing that we have 7 hearings ahead of us. All right, is there anything else in the agenda that anybody can see we can take care of? No.
I guess we could ask Erin if there's anything on her report under the compliance section that's especially problematic. Which of 1 through 5, are there any of them that we should discuss?
I don't think so at this time. I think we're in a holding pattern on most of them.
Okay. I mean, I found the report helpful to get a picture of, you know, in one place, a picture of what we have in front of us. So what is, the other thing I would ask is that we revisit the question or the proposal that UMass would come to us every quarter with a, here's an update, just conversation. And that was 9 months ago and it's never happened. And so I would like them to come in and I would like to revisit that.
Thanks for keeping your thumb on that one, Bruce. Aaron, I see you noting that. Where is that possible for you to follow up with them and re-request it?
So I guess just some clarification is needed on my part. So I've been meeting with them at least quarterly, if not more than that, outside of meetings. But the request is to have them actually come and attend a meeting quarterly.
Yeah, my memory is that the vice president who does this kind of linkage was away for 6 months being sick. and a bunch of stuff happened that we weren't that enthusiastic about. And he promised that he would come and see us every quarter to give us an update, look down the road, where are we going together on various projects, so that we would know. And I think it's excellent that he meets with you, but it feels like I don't have a picture of, I mean, anything like the pond dewatering and, you know, all the drilling of thermal wells. And I have no idea where they are on any of those things.
Okay.
Yeah, that
I
was
can-
Jason Vendetti, right? So he's the director of
Yes,
operations. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, I have the same memory of that discussion. Bruce, Alex?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Aaron if there's any activity on the battery storage project up on Montague Road. And the other part of the question is for anybody and whether or not the bill that just went through Congress that stripped out credits for solar projects, if they're going to affect Hickory Ridge or the battery storage project or any others that might come with us, and just what people's general feeling is.
Given that it's now 7:30 and I don't have any short comments about that, maybe we can table that one, Alex.
Yeah, maybe Aaron can just say a few words about battery storage project. Is there any activity there? Yeah, I drive by, I didn't see anything.
Okay. All right, hearings. General procedure for fairness to all applicants. So each hearing has 20 minutes on the agenda. The hearing structure is 5-minute presentation from the applicant or representative, 5 minutes for public comment or 2 minutes per person, 5 minutes for conservation commissioners. Project Q&A at the chair's discretion. So the commission requires all submitted and revised materials to be submitted by Wednesday, the week prior to the meeting at close of business. And for all presenters, please clearly state your name, the address of the project, who you're representing, and if you have preferred pronouns. And for all members of the public, please state the same. So this is a note. Okay, this is opening. So this public hearing is now called to order. The hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, an act relative to the protection of the wetlands is most recently amended in Article 3.31, Wetlands Protection under the Town of Amherst General Bylaws. This is a notice of intent for Goddard Consulting, LLC, on behalf of Courtney Rose for the construction of a proposed single-family home and buffer zone restoration within buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland at 21 Wildflower Drive, map 21D, lot 16. And do we have folks in the audience? I see Steve Herberty. Did he just pop out? There he is.
Am I on, guys?
You are on. Hi, Steve.
Okay. I didn't see my picture. I didn't know if I was actually in.
Yeah,
no,
all right, he's back out.
I didn't realize I had to keep my hand raised to stay in.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, your camera is off, and so maybe you're just kind of disappearing from my view, but go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, maybe if I can share screen later, I don't know if you can share it, Aaron. But yeah, sorry, Steve Riberty, principal over at Goddard Consulting here for Wildflower Drive, Courtney Rose's project. I think it's going to be house number 30. We just got that from the town this past week, so I'm sure Aaron can speak to some of that nuance. So it's not actually 21 Wildflower. But yes, this lot's part of a previous enforcement order. The homeowner had cleared some of the land, some of which was in buffer zone, issued an enforcement order, at some point last year before. We were brought in to kind of do a permit filing for that work and what he wants to do out there. So we did the wetland delineation last fall, got that done, took the surveyor a while to get everything kind of put together and site plans done. So now we have site plans. We submitted those recently for this notice of intent. Can I share screen, Aaron, to put the plans up? Might be easier to talk the plan. I'm not actually seeing a share button. I don't know why my Zoom thing is totally different than last time.
Are you raising your hand to talk, Aaron?
Yes, it might be because Michelle brought,
Okay,
I can try to promote,
there you
and
go.
I also have the plan up myself, so I can share that if you'd like.
Oh, I think that's better. Now I'm here.
there you are, see you. Thanks.
All right, let me share. Now I can share. I think that would be it. Do you see a plan?
We do.
Excellent. All right, well, this is the proposed site plan. This took a little effort to put together between the surveyor and Courtney, who I believe is on tonight too, if we have questions for him. But in essence, this kind of stylized tree line that goes around the edge is kind of what he cut as part of the enforcement order. We had mapped that out. We delineated the wetlands, which are actually off site, but there's an intermittent stream over here, some fringing wetlands along the stream banks, very steep slope from the wetland up to his site, which is relatively flat, but it drops down pretty steeply right over in this area. This area is still all forested. This area is obviously not. It's been cleared. It's growing back, with lots of stump sprouts and raspberry and some shrubs starting to come in. These areas that are hatched are the areas of the buffer zone that were cleared. The red hatching would represent the part of the buffer zone that he cleared that we want to ask for permission to stay cleared to be part of the house and the yard. And this green area in the back is an area that he cleared that will restore. It's not needed for what he wants for a yard or a house. And, we'll put some trees back in there and some stump sprouts are already happening, so we can let nature kind of take its course to some extent too and kind of reforest that area. In total, I ran the calcs, Aaron. I know you asked at the field walk. The total buffer zone on site is like 21,700, and this red area here represents about just over 4,000, so it's about 18% of buffer zone if we kept it like this. The proposed home is kind of close to the road. Putting it back here, just the way these lot lines are kind of funky, would push the house, much farther into the buffer zone if the home were located in the back of the lot. So the house is closer to the front. At its closest point here, we're probably 37 feet into the buffer zone, so 67 feet away from the wetland. Driveway over here, which is outside of the buffer zone. It's proposed to be initially gravel. Courtney may pave it at some point in the future. I think that's still to be determined. Then we talked about some elements that aren't on the plans. We wanted to just get plans to you guys relatively quickly to start the process, because I know you guys are anxious to see a filing from him. I know we have some work to do and want to get some input from you guys on where the plan is now and maybe come up with a finalized plan for the next meeting. But yeah, the driveway's here. Utility lines will be outside the buffer zone. We don't show them, but we can add those in. Let's see any other notes here I have on the plan. We don't have no disturb markers, but we'll show some no disturb markers along this entire limit of work, as we discussed at the field walk. There was some discussion in the field yesterday about maybe shifting the driveway a little bit over this way to get around the fire hydrant. I'm looking at this plan now. This is the fire hydrant. So the driveway is already on this side of the fire hydrant. So that may already be reflected on this plan, but I'll confirm with Courtney and Randy, who put the plan together, to see if that's true or not. And we might put a little retaining wall in here as well to kind of hold any grading back, but that'll also be outside the buffer zone. There's no grading proposed up in here. The house will just be at grade. And obviously we'll do an erosion control around everything. We were talking about doing silt fence and straw and like a wattle or a filter sock combination along the entire limit of work, just because of the slope that's out here. And that's kind of the summation of everything that's kind of happened and what our proposed, I think, development and restoration of some of the things that had been cut out there are. I think we've got like 20 something trees that we're proposing to plant out here right now.
Great, thanks, Steve. That was pretty good on your 5-minute mark. Appreciate it.
To keep it right to 5.
Erin, do you want to give us your staff comments on this, please?
I mean, I put my comments in the report
Okay,
in hopes that I wouldn't have to repeat them. I think there's a number of sort of missing plan elements and some revisions that they were looking to make. So I think they were looking for a continuance tonight.
okay, commissioners, public comment. Is there any public comment on, you said 30 Wildflower Drive, but on the agenda, 21 Wildflower Drive, please raise your hand. Okay, we did receive some online public comment. Okay, I see Vivian. I'm gonna allow you to talk, Vivian, so we asked to keep it to 2 minutes, please.
I'll need her name, last name and address.
Yeah, Erin, do you see her on your screen?
I do. There we go.
Can you hear me?
We can. Hi,
Okay,
Vivian.
sorry. Vivian Addison, 22 Wildflower Drive. Just my comment is that there was a lot of brush and tree limbs left in heaps of piles all over, including really close or possibly on our property. And I just wanted to make sure that those were like taken care of.
On your property, you said?
Well, it's hard to tell exactly, but there's sort of just piles of brush and trees that were cut down that were just sort of abandoned.
Okay, I guess Steve, maybe you could relay that to the owner as a courtesy, maybe.
And I know he stopped. He just, I think when he got the enforcement order, he just didn't just stop right what he was doing. So everything that was left was left. But yeah, I'll make sure that he's
Okay,
Okay,
everything.
thank you.
all right, thanks, Vivian.
That's all. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, on to commissioners. I see no other public comment. So Alex, go ahead.
Yes, to the piles of things, work stopped when the order was issued, and work literally stopped. They didn't take the time to remove the tree, the remains of the trees that were cut. They're still piled up, and it's logical that they will be removed when construction begins, and that the lot will be tidied up. There's a lot of stump sprouts right now, and both Bruce and I were there. And one of the things that occurred to me in looking at the drawings, and I'm not sure that this is true, but it appears that it could be supposed that people design the house they want and then stick it on the lot, rather than designing the house to the lot to avoid the buffers and that kind of thing. So I'm not sure what the commission can ever do about that, to encourage people to design the houses they want to build to fit onto the lot without having to go over the buffers. But this is a perfect example. For example, that's a deck that's going out into the red zone, and maybe it could be placed someplace else. I did ask him if you could put the house in the back of the lot, and because the lines are so wonky, it just doesn't fit. So it makes sense for it to be close to the road. He's got an electrical box and a hydrant to work with, and arranging where the driveway comes in. And in Wildflower, I don't see too many gravel driveways, so I think it's safe to assume it's going to be paved. Thank you.
Alex, Bruce.
Yeah, when they come back after the continuance, I would like to see documentation that it is less than 20% in the 50 to 100 buffer. I can't tell that from the drawing, and I thought I heard Mr. Riverdi say it was 18%, but if we could be sure to have documentation of that.
Yeah, I'll make sure Randy puts those calculations clearly on the plan with the percentage right on it.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, could with other projects we've asked, commissioners were concerned with setting precedent about any kind of disturbance within the buffer zone that's not, I'm gonna say, absolutely necessary or part of a redevelopment project. This isn't a redevelopment project. This buffer zone was already disturbed, and they're asking to just, if I understand it, you're asking to not do any kind of mitigation to mitigate the existing disturbance and then build what I guess Alex said was a deck, but I can't tell just from looking at the outline of a structure here what it actually is. But then there's a good portion of that buffer zone that in this red stripe that's going to be, or the hatching here, that's going to remain disturbed with seemingly no structure on it. And it doesn't sound like there's any reason why it needs to be disturbed. It's just that the applicant wants it to be left disturbed. And in the last meeting, there was conversation about setting precedent. So this, I don't know how this instance is any different from conversations in the last meeting about setting precedent for disturbance or allowing for disturbance in this buffer zone when it's not like a redevelopment project, it's not degraded, and it's already been disturbed. So I'm just curious, I agree with what Alex said. It looks like a house was designed and then dropped on a lot, as opposed to a house being designed for the lot. And then there not being any disturbance in the buffer zone outside of the disturbance that already exists. So I'm concerned about that. If we're concerned about setting precedent, I think this is setting a precedent as well.
So my understanding is that the precedent that we've been concerned about is going over our 20% threshold, but we have allowed encroachment into the 100-foot buffer under that, generally with mitigation from the applicant. It does look like this, if the pink hatch is going to be lawn or just outdoor use area, that could be reduced. And 18%, I agree with Bruce, that's awfully close to 20. A lot of little room for error there. So I think given that this project has a violation on it for the disturbance, it would be nice to see some avoidance efforts to the extent possible here.
I can talk to Courtney. I'm sure he'd be amenable to kind of reducing some of this red area back here and putting that into restoration to get it, more comfortably below 20. I just did the calculation quick off the
Yeah.
plans
No,
here.
we appreciate having some kind of ballpark, or that's pretty precise. Rachel.
Thank you. Yeah, and Aaron, thank you for your comments. That's super helpful for focusing the commissioner's review. I just want to reinforce her comments, Steve, and make sure that those get addressed by the applicant. If it helps at all, those comments are helping us understand the extent of disturbance. So what you're showing on the plan now is a footprint, and maybe the driveway, and I heard you say you're not going to do a lot of grading, but depending where those utilities drop in, depending on how you level out the driveway, if you put a culvert in to deal with stormwater, all those things start to expand that limit of work and that footprint. So that's something that'll be really helpful when you come back to have that sort of ironed out before you do your calculations of disturbance, so that we can look at that comprehensively. And if you can provide some approximation of the number of trees that were cut. I think that'll be helpful too, as we work with you towards a mitigation approach.
Yeah, we didn't specifically count trees when we were out there before, but it's probably not that hard of an effort to just go count the stumps.
Bruce?
And
Oh,
There
sorry.
may- oh, sorry. One last thing is, you may want to talk with the builder and see what they need for clearance around the footprint of the building. On some projects, they've pushed back and said they need a minimum of 20 or 25 feet on all sides. So again, that might impact if that's the case, that might impact your limited disturbance during construction. And, they're going to want level areas to move their equipment around and stuff. So.
Yeah, I'll make that point to Courtney.
That's it. Sorry.
Jason, did you have a follow-up or should I go to Bruce first?
Oh,
Oh, sorry, I
think-
forgot to put my hand down.
Okay, go ahead, Bruce.
I think Roberti already said, that you just go around and count the stumps and you'll know how many trees got cut down.
Yeah, quite a few. I guess I just wanted to put something out there for people to think about is that I wasn't on site. I haven't been on site since there's been regrowth. So I saw it right up as it was being cut. And it looks from the pictures like it's coming back pretty native and nice. And I guess I saw your planting plan and it looked good, but I'm actually wondering if it's necessary to create further disturbance through plantings, or if like the natural succession, if there's no infestations of invasives, is kind of the better option for remediating the tree cutting. And planting white pines near the house, I'm just cautious about that creating a hazard later for a landowner and that tree having to be removed anyway. So yeah, if anyone's been on site recently, maybe you could chime in on that, but I just wanted to maybe propose a less aggressive planting for the site if it's coming in pretty good. But Steve, you've been out there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm thinking the same thing as you, Michelle. When we first designed it, I was just picturing a moonscape with nothing growing, and a lot of those deciduous trees have coppiced, and they're all doing great. So I mean, obviously there was a lot of pine that was lost that's not going to regrow, but I was thinking to reduce the planting plan a little bit and try to maintain some of the native things that are coming back. And yeah, there's not a lot of invasives coming in there yet, which is perfect time to try to manage it and shepherd it along in the right direction. It's a lot of native stuff coming back in.
Yeah, so maybe we could just be more, specific about this site's needs for restoration in that area, and maybe think a little bigger about restoration for the violation that occurred. Okay, any other commissioner questions or comments on this before we continue?
Yeah, just Michelle,
Yeah.
may I unmute? No.
Oh,
Just following up on house design, would it be I understand that the zigzag design of the house on the left is because of the setback requirement to the neighbor. And the setback is, I've forgotten how many feet, but it's at the setback. And I wonder if the house, like the garage is on the left, the lower left, and the driveway has to come in somewhere around the pink line as it hits the street and then turn a corner to get to the garage. In order to avoid the hydrant, and then going to the left is an electrical box buried in the ground, and there really isn't any room to come straight into the garage. So in order to stay out of the buffer a little more, I wonder if it might be possible to change the design of the house to be more elongated and move that deck to the back of the house and take advantage of the backyard.
yeah, thanks, Alex. So I think commissioners are interested in seeing less footprint in that buffer and shrinking that red area, and getting under that 18% a bit more. Okay, I think we need to move on now, but if someone's willing to make a continuance, and I think this is 7:30 on July 23rd, 2025.
I move that we continue this project to 7:30 PM on July 23rd, 2025, with the conditions as discussed.
Yep. And noting Aaron's comments and having, thorough responses.
Just procedural question.
Mhm.
When Aaron makes suggestions in her report, this is the first time we're working off of that report. So if maybe we come up with some standard language to refer to her report,
Hmm.
so that her recommendations in her report can be integrated.
Good idea. So it's the conservation agent report dated July 9th.
So do I need to speak the motion?
Maybe you could add to it. If you want to restate the motion or just amend it.
Yeah, I don't have a report in front of me, so
You can just call it the conservation agent report dated July 9th, 2025.
yeah, you just did, so
Okay.
consider it amended.
All right. Motion on the floor.
Second,
Bruce on the second. Bruce,
aye.
Rachel,
Hi.
Alex,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right. Thank you, Steve. We'll see you
Aye.
on July 23rd.
All right, sounds good. Thank you,
Good
guys.
night.
Good one.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, no, take care.
Okay, and I'll let you handle the bringing people into the meeting so I don't mess anything up with cameras. All right, this is also a new one to be opened. So this hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of General Laws of the Commonwealth. An act relative to the protection of wetlands is most recently amended in Article 3.31 Wetlands Protection under the Town of Amherst General Bylaws. This is a notice of intent for Wendell Wetland Services on behalf of Tim Stokes for the construction of a proposed single-family home and associated site work with buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at 873 Belchertown Road, map 21B, lot 72.
Sorry,
Lord.
is
Yeah.
Vivian's part of this one too?
Sorry?
Is Vivian, who's still in, part of this one
Oh.
also?
Is Vivian still in from her public comment? Because I can't
Yes.
I can't see. Aaron,
Looks
are
that
you-
way to me at my end.
Okay, Aaron, are you able to dismiss people?
If I remove her, she'll get kicked out of the meeting, so it would be better, Vivian, if you're able to, I don't know if you're able to eject yourself as a panelist or not. I'm afraid I'm gonna kick her out of the meeting if I remove her.
Yeah, okay. Well, Vivian, if you can't figure out how to just go back into the attendees list, I'll remove you and I'm sorry, and you'll just have to rejoin. Okay, sorry about that, Ward. Welcome.
Hi,
So yeah, please take 5 minutes for your notice of intent, please.
can we have a screen share, Aaron, of the project? Ward Smith, Wendell Wetland Services, this is notice of intent filing for a single-family home, 875 Belchertown Road. It's a paved common driveway with 3 lots, 2 of which have already been constructed. This is the one in the middle. The Conservation Commission previously approved this in 2009 under an order of conditions. The only work that was conducted was the lot was cleared and no construction was undertaken or earth moving activities. The wetlands are located on the other side of the paved road. That portion of the lot is entirely wooded and it's proposed to remain wooded. See if we can see the. You have another permit? Is that the only one you have, Aaron? You should have another one. That's okay. Yeah, there we go. So as we look at this, north is to your right. The existing house is to the south, and there's an existing house to the north. And the existing driveway right here is paved, and the slope, it slopes down, wooded slope down to a bordering vegetated wetland that Aaron and I went and looked at the wetland boundary. It's got a small intermittent stream in it. This is one of those funny lots. There are 3 lots that all have frontage on Belchertown Road. So I delineated as many of the wetlands as I could on the lot, but I'm not sure exactly where the lot boundaries were on that narrow skinny part. So I think we're over 20%, but the mitigating there's 2 mitigating factors to that. One is that the lot was cleared previously under a previous order of conditions. And the other is that there's an existing paved driveway, common driveway between the proposed work and the wetland. And no work is proposed within the 50-foot no-touch buffer to the wetland. I'd like Tim Stokes, the builder, to handle any construction-related questions. Aaron provided us with a list of questions, and I think Tim has addressed all of them. Tim?
Are we waiting for Tim?
I don't know how much you want to handle, want Tim to answer each one of your questions, Aaron, or?
Tim, you're muted. I don't think we need to go down
There we go.
one by one because there's
Okay.
quite a few of them, but
Yep.
did we get the responses in our packet recently, I think? Yeah, okay. So we have that. So maybe Tim, if the commissioners end up having specific questions for you regarding the agent's questions, you could field those. But if you want to add anything else, you guys still have a few minutes left.
I think maybe just as a general comment, I would say that reflecting on the earlier comments from member Hoare about the previous project, I think we took some pains to try and fit the house to the site. And we were actually, I think only about 10% of the footprint of the building is in the 100-foot buffer zone. And it's a relatively modest house. It's about 1,700 square feet. And we're doing our best to just sort of meet working within the setbacks and the allowable buildable area that we have. We're pretty much up against the 25-foot setback at the rear of the lot now. And we are the sort of one of the issues that we were looking at here is just the need to have a driveway and the pitch that we're working with, where we need to have a 10% grade on the driveway. And to do that, we have to do some grading, some excavation or removal to get the house about 4 feet above the roadway, whereas it's presently where the grade is now, it sits at about 6.5 feet above the roadway. And we couldn't possibly get a driveway in there that would work and meet a legal standard for the driveway. So that's one of the issues that's created that way. We've lowered the grade a little bit, and that's created the need for a small retaining wall at the back. And so that's I guess some of the sort of design history of that area. And that's what led to the grading plan that Terry Reynolds produced for you all. So,
Thanks, Tim.
sure.
Okay, public comment. If you have any comments on this one, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Commissioners, questions or comments for the applicants? Alex?
Yeah, when we were there yesterday, we drove our vehicles up into the grassy area, which is, we were going down the road. We took a right-hand turn
Mhm.
up the grassy area, and that appeared to be the driveway. But just before we got there, there's the construction ribbon that's about maybe 12 feet long. Is that the actual entrance to the garage?
That's where you would enter from the common driveway for the 3 houses. Well, the 2 houses that are there now in our proposed dwelling. You would come off of that where we had ribboned it off on the street there, and that would be the entrance to the driveway that leads up to the garage.
So that's shared?
Well,
The other house had its
the
own driveway.
driveway, there's a shared driveway that comes off of Belchertown Road, Route 9. So all those that you're turning into 875, which is our parcel, lot 3. The other parcels that are there share that same driveway, but
Yeah.
off of that are individual driveways that go up into their parcels, into their houses.
Yeah, I'm thinking of what you're calling the driveway as the entrance road.
Yeah, I know it's a little confusing, but I think technically speaking, it's considered a driveway.
Okay. So I was just curious where the entrance to your house actually was, if it was the grassy hillside that we parked on, or if it was where the construction ribbon was prior to that.
Where the construction ribbon was, yeah. And
Okay.
there's kind of an apron that was formed in that roadway there to accommodate that driveway sometime in the
But when
past.
you
I
reduce
don't.
slope, what I'm getting at is the runoff will be sheet runoff onto the road, I think.
There probably will be some, but we can also kind of arc the driveway and camber it in the center so that it sheds off to the side more than it would straight down the middle.
Yeah.
It's kind of a natural culvert that was formed there on the side, where water would tend to go.
And for those who weren't there, the wetland that we're talking about is on the other side of the road, the entrance, what I'm calling the entrance road. So, which is quite long, off of which 3 houses will be built. But the wetland that's involved is on the far side of the road with a fairly steep slope down into the woods where the wetland exists. So there's the buffer zone comes up that steep slope across the road and then up to where this house is. And although from a measurement standpoint, the buffer is the buffer, but there's a hydrologic disconnect, visually anyway, the way things line out, and the road bisects the buffer, and separates it from, at least in part, from the wetland and where this new house wants to go. It's a tricky site.
All right, thanks, Alex. Bruce?
I guess my primary question has to do with Aaron's report 2M, the construction entrance and the use of stone, and her emphasis to not use reclaimed concrete because it breaks up into little pieces, which then flow off the road and down into the stream. Outside of our, I'll be very quick, outside of our jurisdiction, I'm assuming that you're in good communication with the house that's beyond, because that's a very narrow driveway, and during this construction, they could get blocked from their either getting back to their home or leaving their home. So I'm just on behalf of the neighbor, I'm encouraging you to discuss it with them so that they know what's happening.
So I have to
Thanks, Bruce.
apologize. I'm having.
Sounds like you're having connectivity issues.
I can't hear him, so.
Yeah. Tim, you could try turning off your camera and then maybe we can,
So just please
yeah.
be in good communication with the neighbor. That's my request.
We certainly would have communication with the neighbor, and specifically M that we would be adapting that and changing that to using 2 to 4 inch stone there as opposed to crushed concrete.
Great.
And we will, just the nature of that roadway / driveway means that we will have to be in communication with the neighbors and coordinate with them so that when we have vehicles in there that they won't be blocked in. And we generally try to make it easier, and we work from 8 to 4. Those are our hours.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for looking out for them, Bruce, and Tim. Okay, so I think, is there anyone else, any other comments? If not, I think are we still looking to tie up any of your staff comments, Aaron? Are there any pending ones? I'm seeing that their suggestion here is that we close the public hearing tonight and have a continuance. Yeah, okay, so we don't have an order of conditions or anything ready. So I guess, again, as per Alex's suggestion, whoever makes the motion, maybe reference the conservation agent report of July 9th, 2025, as part of your motion.
I move to close the public hearing for construction of a proposed single-family home and associated site work within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at 875 Belchertown Road, map 21B, lot 72. And with reference to, I'm trying to find the language we had before, sorry.
Conservation agents report, July
Thank you.
9th.
With reference to the conservation agent's report of July 9th, 2025. There we go.
We got a motion from Bruce,
A second.
second from Rachel. Bruce,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, thank you, Ward. Tim, we'll see you July 23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Night. Okay, third one to open. Did we ever get Vivian back in the right room? No.
I don't see her now, so.
Okay. All right, this hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth and Act relative to the protection of the wetlands as most recently amended in Article 3.31, Wetlands Protection under Town of Amherst General Bylaws. And this is a notice of intent, tie and bond on behalf of Cooley Dickinson Hospital for the installation of a concrete pad, process chiller unit, 3 concrete piers for mechanical equipment, and associated pavement repairs to support the installation of a replacement MRI within buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at 170 University Drive, map 13D, lot 49. And Aaron, I'll let you bring in the applicant if you can identify them. Good evening, Kate.
How are you?
Good.
I'm not sure if, oh, there we go. I'm not sure if John Atwater is also in the waiting room or not, but he can be promoted up to talk if
Okay.
you
I don't
need
see
to
his
talk to him.
name, so John, if you're in there, just please raise your hand and we'll let you in. Yep, so welcome, Kate. I see a hand raised. Aaron, do you mind? JA 1395. Okay, Kate, so please take 5 minutes to present your project and then we'll move from there.
Sounds good. Kate Wilkins with Tie and Bond here, representing Cooley Dickinson Hospital. We'll abbreviate them to CDH just for ease. CDH at 170 University Drive is looking to replace their existing MRI unit. The MRI is actually located at the back of the property, so the southern extent of the property, there's a little bit of a bump out. And so to facilitate that replacement, based on the new equipment features, what's required for it, new chiller AC units need to be installed as part of that as well. So one will be installed on the left-hand side of the existing MRI building bump out. That'll have a concrete pad with another chiller AC unit on it. And then one along the right-hand side is more the long linear one that goes along the side of the building. Will be 3 to 4 piers and then have another chiller unit on top of that. So 2 units are needed to facilitate cooling of this piece of equipment. So 1 unit is actually used just to cool the MRI, and then the second unit is to actually cool the building and associated area for the actual MRI. So the office portion and seating area and where the technicians are and everything like that. So so this area is currently, it looks like Alex has a question.
Yeah, could you do me a favor or do everybody a favor and bring up a drawing so you can speak to the drawing?
Yes.
Only a
Sorry.
couple of us were on site. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So this is the CDH building. This,
Oh, I
portion-
can't see your screen. Can anyone else see
oh,
it?
there it is. Share.
Oh,
Oh, there we
Got
go.
it.
I got it.
Check. Sorry. So here's the building, the larger building at hand. This smaller portion down here to the south side of the building is the actual MRI unit building. So a portion of this that kind of extends into this other section is actually where the MRI equipment is, and then associated waiting rooms and technician rooms and everything. So the new unit will be replaced in the same location as the existing. They actually have to use there's a hatch at the top to take the old one out and put the new one in, which is pretty interesting. So on this left-hand side is where the concrete pad with the pad mounted chiller will be. And then here is where the concrete piers with the other chiller unit will be. The purple line, pink purple line is the 50-foot no disturb, with the yellow being the 100-foot buffer zone wetland located to the southern portion of the property. All of this area is currently either paved specifically for this one on the right, or it's gravel and pavement and a little bit of grass in this section over here. So there's a little bit of a rush to try to get it done because the unit's going to be installed hopefully in September, but so all the site work needs to happen before they can actually install that and get everything going. So erosion controls are planned to be installed on this southern portion of the existing pavement into the grass area. Any areas of any material that's going to be generated from excavating out a portion of that to put the concrete pad, or anything to take out the piers or to install the piers, will be stockpiled on site outside of the buffer zone, any buffer zones. So we wanted to make sure that that was noted. I know that was one of the questions. Yeah, I mean, the project itself is really just to help facilitate the replacement here, and we tried to locate it in areas adjacent to the existing equipment, primarily for efficiency. If we're trying to pipe stuff from other places, you start to lose some of that cooling efficiency, as well as there's multiple tenants in the building as well. So it causes disruption to them and cost for piping it here, there, and everywhere to get to this location here. I mean, that's the gist of the project. I can go into any of the questions relative to siting. That would seem to be the biggest question during the site visit as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. We'll get to that with commissioner comments and questions, but appreciate that. So if there's any public comment on this one, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to commissioners. Any commissioner questions? Comments? Okay, I can't tell who is first, but how about Bruce?
Well, I'll just do from the note taking, yield to Alex, then follow since I was there. I need the name and address for JA 1395. I don't know who that is.
John Atwater with Cooley Dickinson Hospital, 30 Locust Street, Northampton, 01060.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Alex?
Yeah, while I was on site, and I want to thank Kate for the nice presentation that she made there. We talked about the sensitivity of the 50-foot buffer, and it's pretty understandable that they have pretty tight constraints to work with in order to get the chiller in place. And so my question was whether or not that rectangular concrete structure on the right could be relocated. There's a ramp, like an entrance to the building, and a handicapped accessible ramp right there. And I was asking her if that chiller or that concrete pad could go on the down below that ramp and not be in the way. and be outside the 50-foot buffer. And she said she'd have an answer.
Yes, so I went back and talked to the folks at CDH and the designer. And there seemed to be multiple options that were discussed when they first started to work on this project. So the first one was, hey, can we put it at the top of the building where there's currently AC units? And based on the capacity and the size of this new unit, it couldn't be put on the roof for structural stability of the building. So it was decided to be moved down to the ground. They did look at this location as well. There's a bit of a grade change here. And
Yes.
I tried to respond to Aaron. So here's one kind of side view. See all my random other emails. Sorry about that. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the back of the building. This was actually Google Earth or Street View decided to go in the parking lot, which was helpful for us here. So here's where the existing MRI unit is. Here's the location of that linear one that Alex had commented on. So there's a bit of a grade change. You can see it comes up a little bit here, but this is where that ramp is located going into the facility. So it is an ADA accessible ramp. We'd have to do some additional grading in this location as well as removing this hedgerow. So it wasn't realistically the most feasible option that they thought was the best one here. So to the left of the MRI, one of the other things was, let me see if I can show it here. This green box is also where one of our generators is for the building. And so it does exhaust. So putting the AC unit in closer proximity, it's got to be 25 feet. If it was further in here, they were worried about sucking in the exhaust from the generator on that side, and then losing any potential ramp here. We'd also need to find a new way to connect it in with ductwork into this building and around and to over to here. Disturbing the pediatrics that are over here. There's other tenants locations. It increases the cost. Cooley Dickinson is working at a bit of a budget constraint as well to try to get this updated equipment to help with future use and people coming into the facility. Tried to avoid that area, though it is outside the 50-foot. It had more detrimental impact with additional grading, even though it was outside of the 50-foot versus using the existing degraded area that's already been disturbed and paved to our
Yeah,
opinion.
thanks for explaining those alternatives, Kate and Alex, for the question. Jason?
Yeah, I have just two quick comments. It
Mhm.
appeared on the plan set, there's a row of hay bales and silt fence on the southern side of the curb. Yeah, on the south side of the curb. I would prefer not to see any silt fence there, and generally don't like hay bales, but I would much rather see something other than silt fence where you're not actually going in and disturbing the soil that is directly upstream of the wetlands.
Okay.
And
And one of the
then
comments we did have was, we know that hay bales are a no-no and straw bales would be preferred. Would like a mulch tube be preferred option or a blown straw
for
sock?
me, a compost filter sock, whether it be blown in place or brought in on a pallet, would be a better solution. And then there's an inlet that appears to be downstream of the two work areas. How are you planning on protecting that inlet?
Inlet meaning like a catch basin inlet?
Yeah.
We'll be putting filter bags into the inlet and making sure we keep those clean as well.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thanks, Jason. Bruce?
So, can we ask Aaron to link the possible plausible mitigations for going into the buffer with the notice of non-compliance that is because of the cutting that was actually done down below in the wetland. And these are two different things, but conceivably they are linked if there's a mitigation option.
Yeah, Aaron, can we do that? Like
Well,
combine, yeah.
so Bruce, it's a great question. We did receive a notice of intent, which we had been required by the notice of non-compliance that was issued. That was submitted to us yesterday. So at our next meeting, we're going to have another hearing that discusses the cutting specifically, and I think at that meeting we'll address the delineation that was completed as well to verify that it's accurate. My recommendation, I mean, they specifically wanted to keep these projects separate. So a notice of intent to address the cutting and the invasives management and then handle the MRI machinery separate. So in terms of mitigation, I will defer to the commission if you think there's mitigation necessary for this work. But just if we could try to keep the two separate, because we're going to be dealing with the other one at the next meeting.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's in the 50-foot. It's also on pavement and probably the least impactful place to put it, given the grading necessary and adding, it looks like it would be adding impervious surface if you put it further. Is that east? I don't know what our orientation is, but I don't know. I think for me, that's a consideration. Jason?
Yeah, I was gonna kind of say what you just said. I think this is the least impactful area, and it's a rather small amount of square footage, and it's already disturbed. It's paved. There's a bunch of paving in the area. It's paved. There's parking lot almost right up to the wetland anyway, and there's a curb that exists between the area of work and the wetland. So I think this I think going in and requiring mitigation would potentially be doing more disturbance than is necessary.
It's Jason and Bruce.
Well, yeah, I agree with what has just been said. Nevertheless, it's inside the 50-foot buffer. And therefore, I would ask that the applicant propose a contribution to the mitigation fund so that we can use, not a huge amount, but something that addresses the fact that this is directly inside the no-touch zone, and that we can use that money for mitigating other things in other parts of the town.
Is that a question if I
Yeah.
can ask? Is there any provision or consideration for the fact that it's already disturbed with an impervious surface? So we're really not changing the context or the character of the buffer zone?
It gives us the leeway to make a decision to like have the development within the 50-foot no disturb. So it's a consideration for the commission for the allowance. I think that's, I mean, and it's obviously disturbed and impacted and pre-developed. So that for us is a important consideration when we are looking at any impacts in the 50-foot, which is a no disturb. So Bruce has offered something that could be a pathway forward. Alex?
I favor what Bruce just brought up, at least as a consideration. In perhaps that contribution in the form of compensatory mitigation could be used to actually enhance an existing wetland.
Any other thoughts from commissioners on that? Bruce, is your hand back up?
No.
Okay. So one thing we could do is get you sort of an estimate of what that would look like for that square footage and start the conversation there. I mean, I guess it is in sticking with our procedure and bylaws to have some accountability for the disturbance in the 50-foot. Yeah, any other thoughts from commissioners on this? I think Aaron does have a drafted order of conditions for it. But I don't think that we could go forward with that unless we're able to get you a number and it's agreed upon, which would take some time. So I guess, yeah, go ahead, John.
I understand that we are, you're going to be coming back at the next meeting to discuss the violation that we have on our property. And I'm wondering if there's some way in an effort to move this project forward, because timelines are very strict. We have, the delivery of the MRI scheduled for September. We have people who are going to fly in to install it and train the staff and things like that. The delay in that is going to be just a budget breaker for our project that has been, something we've already ran into multiple problems with as an institution. If there is a way we could use the other notice of intent that we have for the violation and do the remedy of this violation or this disturbance of the 50-foot zone and resolve that during that, it would be greatly appreciated on the behalf of Cooley Dickinson Hospital.
Thank you for that context. So I'm fine with that personally. I just don't know logistically if we can, how to connect those two permits. So Aaron mentioned that you were interested in keeping them separate, but if you're open to that, Aaron, can we legally put a condition from this permit into another NOI for that? Or, I mean, I can't see Aaron on the screen because the screen is being shared.
I can stop sharing if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a little in terms of the mitigation, as I'll just speak as staff, I think it's, in my opinion, I'm not considering this is an existing developed footprint that they're modifying, adding equipment up against a building. I guess I'm grappling with asking for a payment to the in lieu fee account. I think from my perspective, we're looking, like, when we're considering that, we're looking at avoid, minimize, mitigate. And to me, I would rather see restoration on the site rather than the first step being taking money to use elsewhere. So trying to be concise here. I'm not sure how tying the two together would work from a regulatory standpoint. I think we should probably handle them separately, but I think if we're looking at restoration from the previous work or compensation for the previous work that was done in violation, that should be handled separately. And I'm not necessarily sure that I'm in favor of asking for mitigation for the work that's in previously paved areas, but of course the commission can do whatever they wish.
Yeah. Jason?
Yeah, I'm pretty steadfastly against it. It's 138 square feet already paved there's not gonna be impact. There's a curb there. Water running off from the project site's gonna hit that curb. It's gonna go into the storm drain, and that storm drain moves it off site. None of the water from this area is actually gonna get to the wetland. And it's already paved. And like I said, it's 138 square feet. I think that at our discretion, we should just move this project forward and not ask for any kind of mitigation and recognize that this is an already disturbed area in the buffer and that it's really a very small project and has no impact to the wetland or any of the resources.
Thanks, Jason. And I'm gonna give you the floor, Bruce, but maybe you could answer, like, if the mitigation on site or in lieu is a consequences of us deeming that there would be some impact that needs to be mitigated for. And, Jason has made a case for that there is unlikely to be impact. Can we make a decision here that we don't need mitigation for this particular development? Anyway, go ahead.
I agree with what you just said. I would simply, and I agree with Aaron's complexities as, in the staff perspective of these two different projects sort of going side by side. I would simply ask that Willie Dickinson consider a good faith contribution at some point. But we don't have to write it down. I'm asking. But I withdraw the strictness of my request, given what has been said.
Thanks, Bruce. John, do you have any thoughts on that? The suggestion, good faith contribution? I mean, just off the top of my head, thinking about the calculation, it's not a big number. It's under, it might be 3 digits, but it's not. If we were to go that route with the in lieu fee, it wouldn't be a huge sum, is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Okay.
But
no, I think, we as an organization believe in the communities we serve, and we'll gladly support, a contribution of some sort in lieu of that. But I think that, as, Commissioner Dorney said, it's a previously impervious surface, and we are not making it any more impervious.
Yeah. All right, Jason.
I do not like the idea of a good faith. Like either it's going to be required, or it sounds like a shakedown if you're trying to make a good faith thing. Either we're going to go with the strict letter of the law and write it all down and all that stuff. Like, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sit right with me to ask for a good faith dollars. It just doesn't sound right. It doesn't sit right with me. So I get what you're saying. And if this were a larger project with a much larger footprint and potential for impact to the resources, I would agree with you. But based on the size and the lack of any kind of impact, I don't want there to be any language about any kind of contribution to anything. It just doesn't sound right to me.
Okay. If someone's willing to make a motion one way or the other, please feel free to put something on the floor. I can do a show of hands if we're ready to, like, who's willing to move forward with this order of conditions with no in lieu fee requirement or request attached. I am. Okay. All right. All of us. Great. So
all right, I'll move
Maybe
that so I guess the way it's written in this, the order of conditions has been drafted by staff for DEP number 089-0759 pursuant to Wetlands Protection Town of Amherst General Bylaw Article 3.31 and regulations in the Wetlands Protection Act with boilerplate conditions under both the Wetlands Protection Act and Town of Amherst General Bylaw special conditions. I move that be approved.
Second.
Jason on the motion, Alex on the second, Bruce,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, thank you, John and Kate. Have a good
I
evening.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very
Bruce.
much.
Good night.
The note taker has a question.
Yes, no taker.
So in the process of changing the structure of how we're doing all this, we've lost the draft motions that say motion. And I wonder if we could have them back. I'm going to go back through the tape to figure out exactly what was motioned, but having them already set up would be helpful.
What do you think, Aaron? Can we get our help motions back?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Moving on. So,
Yep.
next, yeah,
I gotta step away for just a brief moment and I'll be back for the next hearing. But
okay,
don't delay because of me. I won't be alone long.
okay.
Yes,
All
and
right.
it appears that John and Kate are still in, or at least John is still.
Yeah, we'll give him a minute. He's looking for the buttons, I think.
Okay.
I'm just gonna start reading. So this is a notice of intent for Wendell Wetland Services on behalf of Taylor Davis Landscaping Company Incorporated for maintenance and repair of stormwater management system and wetland restoration, removal of materials from wetlands at 71 West Pomeroy Lane, map 19D, lots 12. Proposed work is located within bordering vegetated wetland and buffer zone. All right. Looks like it's break time. Is Ward coming back? Are there with us? Aaron, I'll let you bring whoever's here in. Hi again, Ward.
Hi again. This was continued, I think, a few meetings ago. And the commission had some questions and Aaron had some questions, and Lyons, I think Lyons should be here to answer the questions. He's better qualified to answer the questions the commission had than I am.
Okay, and can someone remind me, are the questions answered in some document that we received for people
Yes.
to review? Okay, so that's notable. So presumably commissioners had a moment to see that, so I don't think we have to walk through every single one of them. But if you or Lyons, and I see him in there, would like to update us on the status of things briefly, then maybe we can go from there.
Lions,
Hello, Lyons. You're muted.
I think we're all set.
What?
He just hung up and said, I think we're all set.
Lyons just called me. Is Lyons there?
I
Yeah.
am now here. My join as panelist button, when I reached for it, evaporated and I did not
Okay. Okay. Go ahead,
let
Lyons.
anybody know except Carl Ward. Anyway, good evening, everyone. Lyons Witten, OHI Engineering, representing Taylor Davis this evening. If I could share my screen, I could explain a few elements of, let's start with this one. A few elements of the project. So I believe you can see this site plan with a blue line on it.
We can, thanks.
Okay, great. So this is the site plan of the property showing the proposed stormwater mitigation measures. I'm going to slide a second plan in that's that was included in the operation and maintenance plan to sort of do an overall explanation of two different water conveyance systems that lie on top of each other and cross each other. And I think this will help explain a lot of the questions that we had in the previous hearing. So there is a red dashed line representing the existing, what was existing surface water swale, which will be replaced by a sediment forebay, 2 wet basins, and 2 stone check dams that are shown on the engineering plan that we first looked at with the blue line.
Mr. Witten, I'm only seeing the blue one, not the red one.
Yeah, same.
You're not seeing a plan moving back and forth on the screen?
Oh,
No.
Stop sharing. Why is that? Fascinating. Okay, so now you can see an engineering plan,
With the blue line. Yep.
and now do you see a different plan?
No.
Oh,
Well, that's not good. Okay. My apologies. Let me see if I can fix that, because this is important to help clarify the, let's go back to Zoom. And I'm gonna, no, I don't want to leave the webinar. I don't want to do that. I don't know how to do this. Interesting.
Does Erin have the plan available? Maybe she can share it.
She should. She has the operation and maintenance plan. If this would be page 15 of 22.
Do you want to stop sharing and
If you're able, stop sharing. Sure.
Yeah, it's gonna take me a few minutes to navigate to it. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'll explain it on, can you see the engineering plan again?
yeah.
yeah,
Okay, great. So there is an existing surface water swale that takes stormwater from the paved area down through all these proposed structures to the existing pond, and that discharges out this pipe to the wetland on Town of Amherst property. And that's one of the two systems. The second system involves foundation drainage, which is all water that originates underground and stays underground across this plan. And there are two lines. One is on the north side of the barn, and it's represented by this drain line. And it goes to this manhole, which we're calling manhole number 2. And the second part of it comes from a foundation drain near the office of the barn, way on the right side of the plan here. And it goes in a pipe from the foundation drain in a pipe to the same catch basin number 2, manhole number 2. And from there, it discharges in the concrete pipe that's exposed at the surface as it crosses the front of the pond, where the surface water goes over the top. The storm water goes over the top, but the foundation drain goes in the pipe and goes down to the bottom of the plan, the bottom left, into an existing pond where it discharges in the corner of the Taylor Davis property. So there's two systems. There's foundation drain from this portion of the barn foundation and this upper northern portion, and both of them come together in manhole number 2, go in the concrete pipe that's exposed, and go down to the southwest. And the second system is all surface water. It comes off of the paved driveway, goes in the existing swale, which we're now proposing to have several structures, into the pond, and then discharges over to the wetland.
Okay. Thank
All
you
right,
for
so it's
solving. Yeah.
two different systems that are superimposed on top of each other. So what I'd like to, so the pipe that was in the process of being replaced is the foundation drain pipe from this portion of the barn, and this manhole number 1 is a new structure that was installed by Taylor Davis without a permit, and replacement of the pipe was being done without a permit. And the pipe was being replaced because it was all corrugated metal pipe, and it was old enough that it had rusted through and filled with the surrounding soil and was no longer draining the foundation. So they were having flooding problems inside. So he took it upon himself to replace the pipe, and in the process put in a catch basin, this manhole number 1. So that got put in, but replacement of the pipe was never finished. So it's 80% finished, but not connected to manhole number 2.
Okay, yeah, thank you for solving the mystery of the pipe matrix, which we were looking at last time.
Yes.
Okay, so everybody I think has had a chance to look at Aaron's comments, and you provided comments also. I'm gonna go to public comment. If there's any public comment for this, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to the commissioners. Commissioners, questions or comments on this or any of Aaron's comments and the responses from the applicant? Okay, I'm seeing none. Someone say something? Nope. Okay, in which case we think we have a drafted order of conditions and we're looking to close this tonight. And again, whoever makes the motion, please tie in the conservation agent comments from July 9th, 2025.
So I will move that we approve the order of conditions, which has been drafted by staff for DEP number 089-0751 pursuant to Wetlands Protection Town of Amherst General Bylaw, Article 3.31 and regulations, and the Wetlands Protection Act with boilerplate conditions under both the Wetlands Protection Act and Town of Amherst General Bylaw with special conditions and notes or comments noted in the
Conservation agent
conservation
report.
conservation director's
CAP.
report, dated July 9th, 2025.
Thanks, Jason. Motion on the floor.
Second.
Motion from Jason, Alex on the second, Bruce,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right, thanks, Ward, Lyons.
Thank you
Have a
very
good night.
much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bruce.
Still trying to work our way through the transition here.
Yeah.
Aaron, why is your memo today the report of July 9th dated April 18th? My copy of your memo says date April 18th. And then it says regarding the conservation report of July 9th.
Yeah, it's probably just a typo.
Okay.
With the date.
Yeah. Okay. What would the date be for the memo ahead of today's meeting? What is the correct date of the memo?
The memo was issued today, so it'd be today's date.
Hey, okay.
And I can correct it.
It's okay. I'm just trying to get it figured out here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. All right, so next up, we have our notice of intent for GZA Geoenvironmental Incorporated on behalf of Archipelago Investments LLC and Hampshire College for proposed mixed-use residential development at 0 West Bay Road, map 25B, lots 52 and 0 West Street, map 25B, lot 58. Proposed work includes construction of 3 mixed-use residential structures with associated parking, stormwater remediation, and landscaping, portions of which are located within buffer zones supporting vegetated wetland DEP number 0890752. And I'm just assuming that you're bringing people in or
I'm just
having
not
trouble?
seeing Kyle.
Okay. Kyle, if you're
Um,
there, please raise your hand so we can get you in.
Oh, I see Mark. I'll add Mark.
Hi, Mark, welcome. Do you expect Kyle to be here tonight or is it just you? We can't hear you.
I do expect Kyle to be here.
Okay.
He would like clarification from the commission.
Yeah, so we have our comments and notes from Aaron, commissioners. This is a fairly short one, so there's some questions posed to us. So I think what we're trying to do tonight is give that clarity to the applicants. So hopefully we can have a good focused discussion to achieve that. Mark, do you want to take any time to update us or do you want us to move forward with this? Or are we waiting for Kyle?
If there's time to wait for Kyle, if he's on, if Aaron can find him.
He didn't raise his hand, and Aaron, you're not seeing him either? No. Are you able to contact him?
Yes, 1 second. Is Dylan on the meeting?
Dylan Barstow Mans?
I believe that would be him.
Okay. If Dylan is here for the meeting, please raise your hand so we can promote you to panelist. Oh, I see Kyle.
Kyle's popping on in a second.
Apologies.
Sure. Aaron, do you mind bringing up? There we go. All right. Gang's all here.
Good evening.
Hi, Kyle. All right, so we're turning it over to you guys for a 5-minute update if you'd like to talk to us about project state.
Appreciate that. Could I share my screen?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
I appreciate the time tonight. Appreciate the time on the previous meetings. Don't want to take too much of your time. I know it's late already. So we presented a couple of plans to Aaron and a couple of questions. The first plan is from Harold Eaton and Associates. It's what I believe is the final wetland flagging layout. So the surveyor's gone back in. I believe everybody's met on site. And I think that the new flags were A11, 12, and 13 here in the middle, and then there was some additional work done on the far west side. So my understanding is that there's agreement that that is where the wetland stands currently, and open to if that's not the case, of course. And then I submitted another exhibit from GZA, and that shows the site extent. It shows the topography, shows the wetland with the new and final, what I understand to be final flags, shows a 50-foot buffer, shows a 100-foot buffer, and then shows the wells where this site offers very few opportunities with high groundwater for subterranean stormwater that's going to be required for any new development. So wanted to get clarity from the commission on a couple of things. We've obviously shown you a revised plan at the last meeting. As we've tried to work through that, there's a number of things that we need some clarity and guidance on in order to try to bring a successful project to this site that works for the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. So I actually had three questions proposed, and what I wanted to, what we're going to talk about here was our approach to the lead arsenic soil. And our, we'd like to get as close to the wetland bylaw as we could, clean up as much of the soil as possible. And as you can see from this diagram, which we submitted previously, our site is down gradient from the wetland, which is pretty unique. And I wanted to also, ask you these two questions about lead arsenic, but what I wanted to propose right now was to say, let's skip these two questions. I think we can come back to this item. We want to come to some clarity with the commission on this, but I think that what's driving decisions as we try to find a project that might work here is really the third question. So I'd like to, if the commission agrees with that, I'd like to just try to keep it short and spend time talking about question 3. So let me know if you want to go back to this, but question 3 is related to the 20% provision. And we would like some guidance on that because it is going to determine a great deal about the project. The section 4 part G, it's the buffer, that's the preamble, that's the excerpt, and it talks about the 20% buffer. And we're looking for guidance from the commission on that buffer. Obviously, the plans we've submitted show how we feel about the site, and we've discussed at previous meetings that the site has been previously altered. The site was a commercial orchard for many decades. The soil on site in and out of the wetland is contaminated with lead arsenic. The wetland on site is fed by a 24-inch concrete pipe that dumps untreated runoff from Applewood parking lots and adjacent streets into the center of the resource area. And as the commissioners have seen on the site visits, the site in and out of the wetland has extensive invasive species. So our take on the site is it's previously altered, the water's dirty, the soil's contaminated, and the plants are invasive, and therefore we obviously may have misunderstood, but thought that this site would be a site that the commission would see to it as one that would allow for alteration beyond 20%. So if the commission agrees, I'd like to spend tonight to really just talk about this 20% provision and try to get some guidance and clarity from the commission how they feel about this site.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank
So
you.
now we're going to go to public comments. So if there's any public comment for this, please raise your hand. I see Maria. Go ahead, Maria. Please keep it at 2 minutes.
Yep, I will. Maria Kopicki, South Amherst, 65 Country Corners Road. I had written to you guys a couple weeks ago discussing this whole, redevelopment, degradation, degraded site thing, and it is not what Kyle is proposing does not comport with the bylaws. This is not redevelopment. This is not riverfront area. This is not paved impervious previous work. It does not fit the bill. And it is also not degraded. Kyle may have an opinion about whether this is a degraded area, but that has profound implications if this commission agrees that this is a degraded site. And I really hope that the Conservation Commission thinks long and hard about the implications, not just for these 2 parcels, but for every parcel in town that was a previous orchard. And that's a lot. So, yeah, I mean, it's really hard to make a public comment when we're constantly, and I don't know how you guys manage this, we're constantly getting stuff in real time. And so formulating thoughts is a little bit difficult on the spur of the moment. So that's the best I can do for now. I think you guys probably know my feelings about this. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Maria. Any other public comment? Okay. I did see some online forms come in late. Haven't had a chance to look at them. So they're noted as public record. Okay. Going over to commissioners, questions and comments, and Kyle is giving us pretty clear guidance on what he would like us to focus on tonight and have him walk away with some guidance. Jason.
I I agree with some of what is presented here. I don't believe that this is redevelopment in that I don't think a apple orchard that's been fallow for a decade or more. I don't think this is redevelopment, but I do think that the lead arsenic in the soils is something that needs to be cleaned up. The notion that, or as the way I understand it, is that even if this project were to not touch anything within the 100-foot buffer, there's still a bunch of lead arsenic contaminated soil. And then wherever that line, so then at the 100-foot buffer, a fence is going to need to go up to prevent people from going into where that lead arsenic contaminated soil now exists, outside of where it was remediated. So a fence is going to go up either way if development happens on this lot. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then based on commissioners' comments from site visits, a large portion of the area within the 100 to 50-foot buffer, or potentially even the 50-foot buffer in, has a lot of invasive species. So I would agree that if there is work done in the buffer, removing those invasive species is a good thing and would help to improve the wetlands. And then the last thing is that these wetlands seem to only exist because that pipe is dumping a bunch of stormwater out just onto a property. I know that the fact that the wetlands exist now is, kind of immaterial as to how they got there, but I don't believe that would be permitted these days. I don't know how they just were able to dump a bunch of water from an upstream development onto a lot. That doesn't seem to actually go either into a storm drain or directly into a receiving water. So that development upstream created these wetlands where there were no wetlands before. So I tend to be in favor of an exception with some potential site modifications that were presented at the previous meeting. I would agree to some sort of variance to allow for alteration beyond the 20%.
Thank you, Jason. All right, I'd like to hear from other commissioners too. Rachel?
Yeah, I'm just gonna put this out there. There are some case studies of alternative methods for dealing with arsenic using phytoremediation processes. And I'm curious if that is something that could be an alternative to disturbing the soil within the buffer zone. If that approach might be a less intensive way to remediate the site and removing all the soil that's in the buffer zone adjacent to the wetland.
Thanks, Rachel. Do you have an idea of like a timeline for phytoremediating, let's say, generally old orchard lead arsenic conditions?
I don't have that already, but I do know it's a longer period of time, like in the 5 to 10 year period, but in other cases. But this particular chemical has been effective to use a type of fern to be able to pull that out, and so then the fern gets harvested and disposed of and replanted, and so it's a way to pull the toxins out of the soil.
Thanks, Rachel. Bruce?
Well, as my comments on the Cooley Dickinson might indicate, I'm not in favor of making an exception to the 20% rule limit.
Thanks, Bruce. Alex?
I have a question for Kyle and then a comment, and excuse me, Kyle, if I should have known this from previous discussions or from your filings, but are you required to remove the contaminants?
Any new development that results in residential use would have to.
No, you do not.
Sorry, I heard something. My understanding is that there are a couple different methods, as Rachel pointed out, as some other folks have talked about, of addressing lead arsenic soil. We're trying to consider how best to address those in the context of a new development project that has timing and construction, and would have to address where the fence would go in terms of how and when different areas are remediated. In our discussions, we believe that the removal of the soil is the best way to do that. I understand there's other ways to potentially do that. You could bring in additional soil on top of the existing soil. You can potentially bury it under parking lots, etc. And some of those things are limited in sites that don't have sufficient cover to groundwater, and this site's one of those.
Yeah. So my question was, are you required to remove the contaminants if they're not capped?
If there's a section of the site that we did not remove the contaminants on, it needs to be fenced. Does that answer your question, Alex, or am I missing that?
Yeah, I figured the fence was a requirement, but so if you're required to remove the contaminants, then by law, then it's not mitigation for this project. It's something you're required to do in order to build the project.
Alex, that might be true, but is that relevant, I guess, to the questions we're trying to get to right now?
Well, it has to do with the 20% and the stuff he's put up here. And if he's required to remove the contaminants, then I think that's relevant. And I am with Bruce in that I have a dim view of issuing a waiver.
Okay, well, the mitigation would come if we did issue the waiver. So I guess you've answered the question though, just in a different order. Jason?
Is there any, Kyle, have you all gone back, and I know there was some reconfigurations. With those reconfigurations, have you recalculated the amount of disturbance within the buffer? Are you still, are you at 45% or are you at 21%? Like how close to that 20% would you be with these reconfigurations? And sorry, as a follow-up to that, to the other commissioners, is there a point where you are okay with a, say, 5% wiggle room, or is it 20 or less, no exceptions at all? And sorry, Kyle, if you could answer first and then other commissioners.
I can answer for Kyle on that one. We have not calculated the new area for the current concepts that Kyle's have come up with. We would like a answer from the commission whether or not they will allow the 20%. We could try designing up to the 20%. Kyle is offering to remove the soil up to the wetland boundary or to the fence when he doesn't have to. He can do it at the 100, as he's previously said, but that limits him. It leaves a whole bunch of contaminated soil on property, which is going to be left there. I understand the commission's feeling, or some of the commissioners' feelings, but again, as Jason said, it seems like a degraded site with the contamination and the invasive species. Which removing the soil will also remove some of the invasives, and then it would be easier to control the invasives after that.
And then to follow up with Mark's comments, Jason, and get back somewhat. So if the remaining site, if we were not to touch the buffer at all, if we were to say we're not even going to ask for 20%, we're going to stay out of the 100-foot buffer completely, and we have to obviously stay out of where we can put stormwater, it's about 40-45% of the site that's remaining total. That's just total site. So the other interesting thing is because the site that we're considering developing, it's down gradient from the wetland. As we get out from the buffer from the wetland, we go further down the hill. So some of the egress considerations we have to consider with driving and walking become a little trickier on Gould Way to try to get the housing, mixed use, and parking all in, within 120 feet. Everything turns into a very tight coordination.
Bruce.
This is a little different than what I asked before, but Mr. Wilson, I believe that at a previous meeting, there was discussion about having reduced down to 2 buildings. But then in the description read by Michelle this evening, it said 3 structures. That may be a holdover from the very beginning of this process, but where are we in terms of the number of buildings?
So the last plan that we showed you were 2 buildings.
Okay.
And we're trying to further develop those, and we're realizing unless we have guidance on the 20%, we really can't, because how those start to work with the grades and parking.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Mark or Kyle, whoever has control, do you mind going back to your question 3 slide? I guess for one, it would be helpful for me to know if we're talking about 25% or 20% or 45%. But we have no idea at this point. And again, you talked about development of outdoor non-impervious areas, but any kind of permanent modification of that buffer would count as part of your footprint. So just keep that in mind too. When I look at this from like the wetland ecology perspective, I appreciate your description of the site and I agree with that top box. Those are definitely the conditions of the site. The summary, maybe I don't agree with so much, or I could see a different perspective on that. So the site is previously altered, and all of the land in Amherst is previously altered and in some state of regeneration or regrowth or redevelopment. The water is dirty, but experiencing some bioremediation through the existing natural wetlands. The soil is contaminated like much of South Amherst old orchards are, and the plants are invasive, and it's pretty typical of any kind of early successional habitat you would find in that area. So I guess what I'm saying is there's a couple ways to look at it, and I think we're talking about it very subjectively right now. And what we've talked about before is trying to get a restoration ecologist to weigh in on this. And what would help me is I know that you've talked to Aaron, I think, about using Aaron, can you chime in here? Is it the bordering vegetated wetland evaluation data sheet? And this is an accounting of overstory, understory, ground cover, species, and it's a pretty objective way to take stock of the condition of a site. And to make the case that this falls in severely degraded, I think we just need some kind of more objective guidance on that. So right now, it's a pretty typical site for an old South Amherst orchard. I don't know if I could call it severely degraded to that extent, but I was hoping that at some point we could, hear from somebody with ecological expertise on the site and its functions right now. And again, I can't see Aaron, but Aaron, can you remind me what we were talking about? You had mentioned before that we do have that worksheet, which is how we evaluate what bordering vegetated wetland when it is.
I think what I was referring to was in the preamble of our bordering vegetated wetlands section of our regulations, it talks about the values that the commission has defined as being important for BVW, and based on those values to try to assess whether the values of the BVW have been impacted. I think that's what you're talking about, Michelle, that there were no data sheets submitted for this. There was a wetland scientist report, but there was no
Yeah, I think it was a different site or different project, maybe from Steve Verberty, and it was like a kind of a worksheet that went through. And I don't know that that's the right approach here, but I guess, you guys are engineers and that's great, but like having some kind of ecological assessment or some other way where you'd like to demonstrate to us that this is severely degraded. Because right now I could read the same description and come to a different conclusion. And that's where I'm having trouble with deciding whether or not it's appropriate to go over that 20%.
I understand that, and I appreciate that. And I think when we realized that the 20% provision was really the thing that was going to make or break the project and determine how it gets developed, I tried to go back and understand as much as I could about how it came to be. So I went back and watched a lot of YouTube in the last couple weeks. Went back and watched all the bylaw revision subcommittee and the presentations, and went to see how that came to be and understand that it was something that was borrowed from Northampton, which seems to be great. I think the part that we're struggling with is that Northampton had another element, and that is they had a exclusion for all of the places that the city of Northampton wants to build housing in and wants development and new growth and new tax dollars. So in Amherst, I've got a BVC parcel that's been planned to be redeveloped for as long as I've been alive. And it's the second densest zone in Amherst, and obviously there's not an exclusion for that zone for that type of performance standard. So in one way, BVC is looking to push us towards the second densest zone, and the other, it's saying you can't the site is much smaller. So we're simply trying to obviously we've been before you for multiple meetings. We've been before the planning board. We're working hard with Hampshire to try to come up with something. We're looking to make decisions quickly to allow us to proceed. And I think my take today is that this provision as written still is not supported. An exception to this provision is not supported by the commission, which there's clarity in that. We may disagree with it, but there's clarity in it and would allow us to proceed. I don't think we have the appetite to make a long drawn out case that this is severely degraded. I think we're just trying to do that in front of the commission in a way that it seems clear to us the commission doesn't agree with, meaning that it's more of a standard thing in South Amherst. It's while the soil is contaminated, there's invasive species, that's kind of a standard thing. So it seems to me that the commission, that in terms of keeping score and figuring out where this needs to go, is clear that we should keep it under 20%. And if you look back at this site, 20% on 50 to 100 is 10 feet. So I think that makes clear. I think at a subsequent meeting, we could discuss how far we take the lead arsenic soil removal. We could discuss other potential options. All of that for mitigation, whether it's putting soil on top, whether it's some longer term things, which I don't think would work from a development timeline. But we have to do that in the context of if we can get a building to fit without using more than 20%. So I appreciate everybody's time tonight. I appreciate the commission's efforts on this. I think that with a new bylaw comes precedent all over. So obviously you guys are very busy. There's a lot of precedent that's going to come out of the changes from 2022, and we're going to do our best to come back before you as soon as we can with hopefully a plan that the commission would be amenable to.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right, unless there's any other questions or comments, I think we are continuing this. Looks like 7:40, July 23rd.
I move that we continue. I don't know the language because I can't see, we don't have the thing that Aaron usually draws up, but I move that we continue the Archipelago project and Hampshire project to 7:40 PM on July 23, 2025.
I will second that.
I think Rachel got it. Alex on the motion, Rachel on the second. Rachel,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right, thank you, Steve, Mark, and Kyle. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, next up, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, Bacon Wilson PC on behalf of Colonial Village Development LLC for the confirmation of isolated vegetated wetland boundaries under the Wetlands Protection Town of Amherst General Bylaws and Regulations at 162 South East Street and 81 Belchertown Road, map 15C, lots 80 and 66. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, I think again, Bruce, do you have names and addresses for this?
Well,
Fleetwood Environment. Yeah.
I can get Tom's from other sources. Fleetwood, are you Mr. Cameron?
Yes, David Cameron, Fleetwood Environmental.
All right, it just doesn't show on the screen, you know.
Oh, it doesn't?
Oh, it says Fleetwood, but it doesn't say your name.
Oh, I see.
Welcome. So we're gonna give you 5 minutes for an update on the project and continue from there. So please go ahead.
Thanks. So since our last meeting, we put together a letter with some attachments that was submitted to the commission a few days ago, which is a distillation of many, many files and significant deliberations between the applicant and the Amherst Conservation Commission regarding a specific portion of the study area and property that Aaron had inquired about at the last meeting, which is a portion of the site that holds historic stormwater infrastructure. So there's a packet there. I suspect that Aaron circulated it to the group. I don't know if you've had time to read it yet. Aaron and I spent quite a bit of time at the site yesterday as well, in that area, as well as looking at the other resource areas that we delineated and have depicted on the site plan for the ANRAD. I think we came to consensus on the previous 3 features that we had delineated and shown on the site plan. I proposed adding 2 more flags to what we've called Wetland 2, which is kind of a puddled area that's part of the historic and existing storm drain system up on the northern portion of the property. We looked at another area again that we had looked at, I think on June 24th, the first time we walked the site together, which is a small area kind of smack in the middle of the study area and lawn, which hasn't been mowed repeatedly this spring, probably due to all the rain we've gotten. And so it reflected a slightly different plant community than what I had previously seen. And Aaron and I came to an agreement on what we thought the physical limits of that patch of isolated wetland would be. I placed some flags around that, and we've made arrangements to have the 2 new flags at Wetland 2 surveyed and plotted on to a revised site plan, as well as what we're calling Wetland 4, this new isolated wetland. I think that's most of it. We did have significant discussion regarding the the yard drain in the feature that is the subject of the letter that we submitted a couple of days ago. I think that's all I have to add for now.
Thank you. I appreciated the historical account of the site. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go to public comment and then commissioners. So if there's any public comment, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Bruce, go ahead, please.
With regard to the agent's memo of July 9th, 6D5, and in italics, it says cease mowing immediately. But why does it need to be mowed at all, ever? I mean, it's a huge area. Do people actually use it for recreation?
Who are you asking the question to, Bruce?
It's a rhetorical question. I just walked this thing at some length, and it's like, why does this need to be mowed every 2 weeks? You know?
Yeah, I think it's just standard
I think
landscaping
it's just-
practice.
yeah, it's just been maintained as lawn for, I don't know how long, quite a long
Okay.
time. Portions of the property, as I understand it, have been a field or a lawn since at least the 60s. So
Okay, I raise it as a question. I think it's
Noted. Yeah, okay. So Erin has her comments. Did we receive responses back from you guys? No, okay. So that's sort of pending. So yeah, I guess obviously we'd like to see responses to the itemized comments from Erin. Do you know what I'm talking about, David?
the notes that were in the email of yesterday afternoon, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. I thought I got the impression those notes were Aaron's notes for you guys, just to kind of provide a summary of where things are at.
We didn't see an opportunity to respond, I think.
Okay, so they are mostly comments. I'm looking
Well,
at them.
I don't agree.
Okay. What is outstanding?
Well, it says, maybe they're in there then. It says 6B, staff requested historic records. Staff visited site, and maybe you went through and did all this stuff already.
Yeah. So Erin, can you just, chime in, please?
Yeah, so the document that Dave Cameron is mentioning was received, I want to say it was the day of the site walk, so I didn't really have a chance to look at it in advance. I guess what I'm getting at is it came in after our deadline due to the proximity of the field visits and the meeting tonight. I have not even had a chance to really look at it. We did talk about it in summary in the field. So I would say it's been addressed. I just haven't had a chance to look at it and digest it in detail of what was submitted other than our conversation. And it was also submitted to the commission late as well. So I mean, late, a couple days before the meeting. So you guys likely haven't had a chance to look at it yet either.
Yeah, so our general procedure on that is we'd like to see things the Wednesday before our meeting, and that's kind of our cutoff for determining if everybody has had time to look and respond. But it sounds like the staff hasn't had time to as you say, digest it. So in that case, we'd be looking for continuation tonight. But is there any questions or comments from commissioners for the applicants tonight, in addition to anything Erin might have following that recent submission? Jason?
Erin, in your comments, you mentioned that staff suspects that the existing stormwater system in place in this area has some functionality problems, not adequately designed, and the lack of function is resulting in wetland conditions. Is that wetland, which wetland area? Can you clarify which wetland area that is? And David or Erin, And how does the existence of a pre-existing stormwater system affect anything moving forward
Can I
as far as
respond?
like resource area?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's, to answer your question, Jason, it's not mapped on the ANRAD plan, and that's part of the problem. Is it's not identified as anything. It's, if you look at the topo, you can see that there's like this bermed area with essentially like a spillway on the topo with a being referred to as a yard drain in the center of it. And my understanding from just being familiar with the site and also hearing some of the site history is that this field has had an ongoing history of being flooded over the decades, and that there's like a small sort of landscaping garage that's adjacent to the facility that has been flooded many times. So they incorporated these sort of catch basin and yard drain system to drain this field that flooded and try to get the water off the site. It seems like some of the inverts of the catch basin systems weren't placed correctly, and so it seems like there's quite a bit of ponding, and the water I think that it was the whole system wasn't designed, it was sort of modified after the fact to address this flooding issue. And so it needs to be incorporated on the plan set. It was informally designed and informally created. It's not shown on the plan, and there's hydric soils within it. So that's answer one. Answer two, relative to the question is, I want to say the cutoff is 1996, but I've got to look back in the regs. That if there's a stormwater system that was designed, I want to say it was after that date, and I don't have the regs memorized in this capacity, but that if it was designed after that date, even if it develops wetland characteristics, it's still known to be a designated stormwater system, and so we can sort of treat it as such. In this case, we don't really have any record that it was designed as a stormwater system, so I don't really care whether we call it a wetland or call it a stormwater system. I think we've just got to pick one and go with it. But to me, it's really important because that system is providing some attenuation, some stormwater attenuation for the overall existing development. And if we don't address it, then what's going to happen is that whole field could potentially be developed, and that stormwater system, which is designed to capture water from the existing development, will no longer exist. And so there is some capacity that it will be lost, and we need to define what it is so that we can integrate that in the future and know that it's there.
Thanks, Erin. So I guess that's the outstanding question, is dealing with this stormwater / wetland structure, which we'll see next time you guys come to us, I assume.
Yeah, this particular feature is the primary focus of the packet that I submitted the other day. So I don't think we're planning to submit anything else between now and your next meeting on that particular subject. I think it would be helpful for the commission to read and digest that, and hopefully that will explain why we didn't flag it as a wetland, because the commission specifically issued a determination back in 2015 that exact feature was not a local or state resource area. So, but we don't need to talk about it more tonight. I think you should read what we put together, and that'll probably answer a lot of questions. We also understand we need to continue anyway because we have survey work that needs to be done to pick up the additional flags that we placed in the field for wetland 2 and the new wetland 4. So we anticipated a continuance.
Rachel.
Yeah, fascinating, the building upon historic stormwater and hydric soils, fun stuff. Can you share, if you haven't already, when you submit your package, just the whatever other drainage information? It looks like there was a plan there that was showing the conveyance of the pipes. it might help us to understand the system as a whole, if we can see all the pipes for the site and the property. And that might help us parse out some of that history to know what it's doing.
Yeah, if you look at the plan that was submitted with the ANRAD, that shows all of the existing stormwater infrastructure within the study area. There is some infrastructure that comes into the study area from the south that you can't, that's not shown on that plan. We can regroup as a team and see what we have on that.
Okay, I'll look at that plan again, one you sent to more closely. Thanks.
Okay, I think we're looking for a continuation for this ANRAD to 7:45 p.m. July 23rd.
So moved.
Second.
Alex on the motion, Bruce on the second, Rachel,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right, thank you and good
Thanks.
night.
See you.
All right, last up. Notice of intent for Town of Amherst for construction of a roundabout and realignment of intersection of Amity Street and University Drive. Proposed work is located in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands, map 13B, lot 21, 2, and 18. And I saw Beth here a while ago. Yep, she's still with us. Hi, Beth. Thanks for hanging in there. You're muted.
Yeah, it's late meeting. I just feel sorry for you.
Thank you. All right, do you want to take 5 minutes to update us on this one, please?
Yeah, sure. So at the last meeting, there was still some concern about the stormwater infrastructure improvements that the project's proposing. So we provided a couple more things to the commission. We provided the design from HydroWorks for the Hydrodome. That's going to go in the 30-inch drainage pipe. And we also provided a letter signed by Jason Skills, town engineer, where he basically says that, so he really worked with Fuss and O'Neill on this design. And so he's saying that based on his work with them and based on the improvements and changes to the infrastructure, that he will not, he believes that the design will not significantly increase post-development peak discharge rates compared to pre-development peak discharge rates. And I guess the other thing I wanted to point out is that this Hydrodome, if you were able to go through the design documents, I know I just got them to you guys this week, but this structure not only does treatment, but it also has the ability to have flow control and decrease flows in and out of it. So it will definitely help with decreasing the post-development discharge rates. That's all I have.
Thanks, Beth. Any public comment on this? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, over to commissioners. All right, there were some concerns last time, so yep, go ahead, Rachel.
Thanks, Beth, and thanks, Jason, for taking another look at this. And I think where I get confused a little bit is in the case of redevelopment for roadways and that sort of exemption, where we fall with that, with the regulations and the stormwater requirements. So for me, that's a little bit of a fuzzy area. But in the regulations, they talk about a lot of different standards for this, and we are improving. The project is improving over the existing conditions with the treatment that doesn't exist today. And the recommendations there are for treating that 1 inch of rainfall, which is what you've demonstrated. But I do want to point out that the rainfall amount for the 1 inches, it looks like from the calculations that Jason and you provided that the structures themselves would be able to handle up to the 2-year, I'm sorry, the 10-year storm, somewhere between 3 inches and 4 inches of rainfall, that volume. But it's anything above that, the systems won't be able to handle the 25-year, the 100-year storm amount increase. But again, I'm not clear as a commissioner where this falls in I know there's a lot of leeway in the regulations for redevelopment of roads and surfaces. And in the regs, it says that some of these standards can be waived. And so those are just some thoughts. Just another plug in for the town. I know we're strapped for funds as a town. And if we can help you advocate for grants or funds to study stormwater in town, how it relates to areas of high groundwater and drainage infrastructure with climate change. We can talk offline. I'm happy to help that, but this is an area that, it's downslope of a big hill, and we know it has groundwater issues. And it's an area that over time could become more of a problem, and it'd be great to get ahead of that as a town. That's maybe outside the scope of this project, but in the future.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, I agree. I guess the biggest support that Concom eventually can give is for a stormwater utility, which would be a wonderful thing for the town of Amherst to continue to work on and eventually have.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Or
yeah, it's just it's another fee that residents would be charged similar to what they pay right now for sewer and water. So the money that everyone pays for their sewer and water right now goes into sort of an enterprise fund, and that's what we use to maintain the infrastructure for our drinking water system and our wastewater system. But we don't have any kind of a funding mechanism for stormwater infrastructure. It tends to get thrown in with transportation money, so road money. That's when improvements get made, or grant money. But some towns like Northampton and Belchertown both have a stormwater fee that residents pay. And it can be called a utility or an enterprise fund or whatever. There's a number of towns across Massachusetts that have that. So it would have to be something the town would put together, and of course be brought to all the residents in some way with surveys and stuff, and brought to town council and the finance committee and all that. But it is something that I'm sure the Concom would support if it came forward.
Thanks, Beth. Jason?
Yeah, Beth, I would certainly support a stormwater utility, and would, just out of curiosity, would it be based on the amount of impervious surface on a per lot basis?
There's different ways to calculate it. I had a conversation with the Northampton folks a while ago now, when we were actually talking to the finance committee about it like a year ago or so. And they do it that way. They have sort of a residential fee, but then I'm pretty sure for commercial, it's based on square footage of impervious. And different towns do it in different ways, but yeah.
I think it'd be very good. Good luck getting people to want to pay another fee, another tax,
Right.
they would call it.
It's
But
a
yeah,
political question.
you gotta pay for the infrastructure that exists.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. I keep hearing this brought up, and it certainly piqued everyone's interest, I think. And it sounds like good incentive for things that we are talking about every time we come to meet with Concom. But recognizing that we need to move forward with your NOI tonight, and maybe, I don't know, somehow continuing this discussion on a side, or just maybe letting you know that the Concom is available for further discussion and support if you happen to start pursuing it in more effect. Yeah, so okay, per this NOI for the town of Amherst, any other commissioner comments or questions for Beth? Okay, and so I think Aaron has drafted an order of conditions for this, if someone wants to make a motion.
I'd move that we approve the notice of intent with an order of conditions drafted by staff for DEP 0890755 pursuant to Wetlands Protection, Town of Amherst General Bylaw, Article 3.31, and regulations and the Wetlands Protection Act with boilerplate conditions under both the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Amherst General Bylaw with special conditions.
Second.
Bruce on a motion, Alex on a second. Bruce? Alex?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Rachel?
I abstain. I'm so worried about that 25-year, 100-year storm.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Okay, I'll abstain.
Yeah, I share that concern because it feels like we're closer to that every year. But I guess for this project, I'll be an aye. Okay, thank you, Beth, for hanging in there with us.
Thank you.
And for getting that extra material. All right, good night.
All right. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Beth.
Okay, that's it, guys.
Are there
Thanks for
any
getting
other
through that.
public members left?
Oh, thank you. If there's any public comment, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we're looking for adjournment here.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Jason on the motion, Bruce on the second, Rachel,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right, thank you for your time and thank you for putting together that we got maybe have an acronym for it. The CAM.
Let's call it the memo.
The memo. Aaron's
Capital
memo.
M.
Okay.
Aaron, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it added about 10 hours of work to my week, but
Oh no.
it is what it is, so we'll go
Oh,
with
no.
it.
Well, we can continue to explore the best way to do it, but it was helpful, I think, and yes, so anyway, it's hard to tell if it saved time because it was such a packed meeting, but we'll see. Okay, good night, everyone, and thanks.
Just for reference, we're adjourning at about the same time as we always do.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It feels more intense.
Okay.
Well, then I would advocate that Aaron not do it.
I
If
would-
it adds 10 hours of work to her workload and we adjourn at the same time, then it didn't do anything, to save time.
Yeah, it's
Certainly
a
don't
good
want to
point.
put more work on Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, if you think is it like 10 hours every single time? I mean, we don't need to continue to talk about this at this hour, but maybe just give some thought to what actually is going to make sense for you and the, value added. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.